what you do is deliberate on this fully, and then yathechasi tatha kuru, yatha ichhasi. As you desire, you act accordingly. You do as you wish. Now Krishna has given the entire Bhagavad Gita, the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, which is, we know, has been repeated quite a few times. Then, later on, he also says, Adhyashte ya imam dharmyam samvadam avayo jnana yagyena tenaham ishta sham iti me matihi. He says, and I declare that he who studies this sacred conversation of ours, what happens? Worships me by their intelligence. So imagine there's a communication going on between the Supreme Lord Krishna and his friend, his associate, his confidant, his amazing devotee Arjun. So this communication is going on, this conversation is going on. And as we see that, what is the origin of communication? First of all, we must understand that, as we saw, that communication is the most important skill, the number one skill which we must have. Yeah. And generally people who are good at that, we can see them, they are doing well in life, generally I'm saying. Communication, actually, where does it originate from? So where does communication originate from? Any guesses? From? Any guess? You won't be penalized. Communication comes from our heart. We can say anything. I can say Hare Krishna, and the shopkeeper in Loi Bazaar in Vrindavan will say Hare Krishna. But it's very different. Same sound is coming out, but what is in my heart is different from what is in his heart. He wants your money. So, Prabhupada, he started this communication just by this, the sound of kartals. But what was happening there? Was he just, playing cymbals? No. He was actually communicating with people from his heart. And what was he carrying in his heart? He was carrying the message of his spiritual master to spread the knowledge of Bhakti Yoga, to spread Krishna consciousness in the Western world and basically all over the world. So, now this communication is happening between Arjuna and Krishna. And imagine the situation. Where is this communication happening? On the battlefield, right? On the battlefield. Kurukshetra is even now present, right? So what's the difference between now and then? What was happening then? Right now, if you go and two people, you can talk, we can be patiently hearing each other. But what was the time when this communication happened? The battle was about to begin. Actually, it had begun, right? The battle had begun. And who were the main participants in the battlefield? And, among the Pandavas, Arjun was one of the main ones, yeah? So imagine the battle is going to begin, or it's already begun. They are standing in the middle of battlefield. Arjun is one of the main participants in that. Now, if any excuse for being inattentive was there, it was for them. Arjun could say, hey, Krishna, there's so much happening here, I cannot pay attention here. But for us, what happens? When we are having a conversation, imagine, you last time you had a conversation with someone, how long was Bhagavad Gita going on for? Does anyone know? 45, 46 minutes. And as we know, it's not mentioned somewhere in the scriptures, but we can take it for today that, 46 minutes. Now, have you ever had any conversation with someone for 46 minutes without being inattentive? So this is what we learn. The first lesson we learn from Arjuna and Krishna is that we have to be attentive, absolutely attentive. Now we'll see also, Arjuna was completely attentive, and so was Krishna. Now, Krishna could have said, I know the past, I know the present, I know future, I know everything, you don't have to tell me, I know everything what you're going to say. Generally, when we hear or when we listen to someone, why are we listening? In a conversation, Can I take the liberty of saying that, especially when we Indians speak to each other, we speak to each other and then we listen to reply, not to understand. There's a difference. So, we are talking to each other and I'm speaking something and before my sentence finishes, someone else has got their answer ready. So, we've got the reply ready in our hearts and minds before the sentence is finished. So, we don't want to understand, we want to just reply. But here, Arjun is asking the same question again and again and again. How many topics are discussed? No more than once. Krishna doesn't tell him, hey Arjun, I just told you this, man. Why are you asking me again? Isn't it? Imagine a child. What does a child do? Comes to you and says, this question, then you give an answer. Child will say, why? Then you answer again. But why? And then you answer again. Why? I just told you it is there like that. In the third instance, we become impatient. But here, Arjuna and Krishna, such an amazing communication happening. And imagine this, that this is the most incredible communication happening between the two most powerful personalities. So we have to learn a lesson from this, that first of all, when we communicate with someone, we have to be very, very attentive. It's hard, especially with the age of modern media. We know how much the attention span is. Any Insta followers? No one? Thank you. We're all, nice devotees. Yeah, so, Instagram, anything less than a minute, anything more than a minute, just, goes. We cannot even hold our attention for more than a minute and a half maximum. But here, attention is the most important thing required in this game of communication. Also, if you understand, attention is the most purest and the rarest gift which one can give someone else. Just imagine that. To be a good speaker, what is the first qualification you must be having? Good listener, right? Again, you should hear to understand, not hear to reply. You should listen to understand, not listen to reply. So Arjuna and Krishna, they're talking to each other. The samvad is going on here. The Sanskrit use is dharmyam samvadam. So samvad is a complete. So there are three types of communication, as we know: mode of ignorance, mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of goodness. And vad is in mode of goodness, and samvad means complete mode of goodness. So here again, there's dharmyam. It's this religious, spiritual communication going on between Krishna and Arjuna. What is the next quality we hear from what we learn from the Bhagavad Gita between Arjuna and Krishna? Is Krishna telling Arjuna that yes, I know everything, and I've just told you in brief, second chapter Krishna basically told him everything, yes? Do we need to go to the third chapter? First two chapters Krishna has told everything. But no. This communication is not a structured communication. Generally, when we go to meet someone, we decide in our hearts and minds, I will give him 13 minutes. In that I will press these 5 points and I'll get the result. That's what we do, right? Here, the communication is quite open. Krishna is very patient here. Even though we see that Arjuna is asking the question again, but Krishna is in no hurry. And just understand that the bugle, the trumpets have gone off. The war has actually begun. And Bhishma Pitama is saying, wait, to the Kauravas, wait, there's something important happening here. So this is the conversation, the communication which is happening, where Krishna and Arjuna are speaking very attentively and very openly. When you speak to someone, if it's an open communication, the theory is that the more attentive we are in a communication, the more we get out of that communication. The more attentive we are in a communication, the more we get out of in a communication. Now, the couples, you can try that, in your life. The more attentive you are, the more you can get out. Yeah. Actually, it's easy. Because when we communicate with each other, at least the other person thinks yes. Many times, one devotee was telling me that he has met so many people in his life. He says His Holiness Bhakti Rasamrita Maharaj, he is one of the very patient listeners, one of the most patient listeners you can ever find. People go to him with such problems, and he would just sit there and hear. And same thing Prabhupada used to do. Prabhupada would just sit and hear, talking, people coming with their issues. And within a couple of seconds, couple of lines, he will just give solutions. So Prabhupada's answers were not very long. We will see some of the stories where we come to the last, the third C, that communication has to be open. And the third, of course, there are a lot of, things we can learn from Bhagavad Gita type of communication, but we have very limited time, so we'll just stick to a few of them. And the third one is that a communication, should be spontaneous. Now, when you are not prepared for any communication, when you are open in your heart, automatically the communication will be spontaneous. Sometimes when people study Bhagavad Gita, what they say? This is just like random conversation happening. Today in one of our groups, we were doing the summary of 6th chapter. So when we revise, we just study the translation. And, when you're doing verse by verse, or maybe 3 or 4 verses at a time, you might miss the plot. But when you study the translation one after the other, then the actually flow of dialogue is very clear. In the 6th chapter, for example, Krishna explains that, yoga and sannyas are the same. They're not different. You should do your duty unattached. Then, he speaks about yoga. Then, the practicing stage, the advanced stage, what are the advantages? Then Arjuna says that it's very difficult, in this day and age. So, all these things are going on very nicely. It's a very open and spontaneous communication. And this also we have to learn from Bhagavad Gita. So let me see how many of you are sleeping. So what is the 3 things we learn from this communication from Bhagavad Gita? Attention, then? Okay, what was the way of listening? Openness, yes. And the third one? Spontaneous. So we have to be attentive, we have to be open, and we have to be spontaneous. And that way, we can get more communication happening, and it's communication from the heart, right? As we see from Prabhupada's example, for us to communicate, in my case, for example, I need my laptop, I need a mic, I need this mic, I need everything. And what did Prabhupada have? Nothing, just a pair of cymbals. And he had his, conviction in his heart. So this is, the difference, the modern communication. Now what's happening in modern communication? You see, forget about now. How many years? 2007. So 16 years have gone by. I was in China for some work in 2007. And the last day of my work, it was a fair, it was a trade fair. And I was in the trade fair, and morning I decided to myself, I want to see how many people actually I see today, I meet today, and how many people are not on their phones. And believe me, I'm a customer, and they were all exhibitors, they were like my suppliers, and hardly anyone was interested in me. Everyone was on their phones in 2007. And now with so much, ICE available on the IC is not that ICE what we talk about. IC is information, communication and entertainment. So much of ice available on the mobile phones. You have seen the clip where one Hindi actor says that that the mobile is very thin, right? iPhone sorry. iPhone advertises that the thinnest phone in the market, right? And that the Hindi film actor, he says actually the phone has become very fat. Have you heard that? He says the phone has become fat because the phone has eaten up your relationships. It has eaten up your watch. It has eaten up your torchlight. It has eaten up the affection between the neighbors. Because it has eaten up all these things, even though the phone is supposed to be thin, but it has actually become very fat. So that's the modern way of communication. But no, if we, many times you see, if you're going in a bus in the city, and in a car, if people are, from Monday the school is going to start, and if a family of 4 are going, what are they doing? Are they talking to each other? No. They're all on their phones. So as they say, we have got what? Broader highways but narrow hearts. More means of communication but less to talk. It just goes, this is a prayer by a little girl. It says that, we've got so many facilities, but the hearts are very narrow. Now some important tips on communication. When we want to discuss anything new, any policies, any concepts or any principles, it's always better to speak in person. Yeah. We are a personalist movement. This morning I was hearing a class and Keshav Maharaj was saying that we can be actually impersonalist towards the deities. You'd be surprised. We can become impersonalist towards the deities. And then I thought of one example where Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj used to quote that when they came to the movement in the beginning, he says, when they see the deities, they'll be more interested in seeing the flower vases, the decorative arrangements, than seeing the deities. And it clicked me, yes, we can be actually impersonal with the deities. We can be impersonal with the devotees. And we can be impersonal with so many conditioned souls if we don't think that how are we going to save these conditioned souls. So when we want to discuss policies, concepts and principles, it is always better to start discussing them on a one-to-one basis. Today also while taking prasadam we had a couple of quick meetings. Yeah, and we discussed, okay, this is what we're supposed to do. Once these policies, concepts and principles and whatever philosophies are, like sort of agreed in principle, then the details are for emails or text or WhatsApp, whatever it is. The details can follow. But many times you will see that, if you're in a group, the policies are given to you on a WhatsApp group. And personally it is not very effective at all. Also when people are sending a message, we don't know their body language. We don't know what they are going through, difficult times, good times. So it's better, whenever something happens or someone speaks to me, I always tell them, let's meet. And then you know what exactly is happening from their body language, from the questions you ask. You cannot ask many questions like that. These are just some tips, both in personal life and in spiritual life. Now in spiritual life you might find, but Prabhu, so many things to do, we have to do these things. But actually we will see, when we communicate with people correctly and properly, the results are not obvious because, the progress is happening slowly. But when the communication, mark these words, when the communication is not happening properly, results are obvious because they're actually going down. The situation is going down. And we have seen that time and time again. The people who are in position, and if they don't communicate in the right channels, then you can see the results that is going down. But when we communicate properly, then nothing is seen because things are happening nicely and people don't see slow progress. Last point I want to cover in communication is how do we communicate to the Lord? One word. Any guesses? Okay, very good. Okay, one more word. One more. Serve. Okay, one word. Crying. Okay, okay. So we communicate through all these means, but we have to have prayers. In a prayerful mood. If we chant without prayers, mechanical. If we serve without prayers, in the heart full of gratitude, nice service is happening, but we might not be able to continue for a long time. So prayers, we communicate to the Lord through prayers. In Vrindavan, there was one devotee was giving class, and there was discussion happening whether we can actually recite our own prayers. And the devotee was saying that Prabhupada mentioned that when we greet the deities, we must actually offer some prayers. So when we greet the deities in the morning in the temple, we must offer some prayers. And then the discussion ensued from there that whether these prayers can be just we follow some acharya's prayers, or can we make our own prayers, or can we just have prayers spontaneously from our hearts and mind. So Prabhupada writes very nicely, when Gajendra is offering prayers to the Lord when he's caught by the crocodile and he's offering prayers, it's very nice. I'll just read the Sanskrit. So please repeat after me. Evam vyavasito buddhya Evam vyavasito buddhya Samadhaya manoridhi Samadhaya manoridhi Jajapa paramam japyam Jajapa paramam japyam Praga janma anushikshitam Praga janma anushikshitam. So evam vyavasito buddhya. So he says the king of the elephants, and then he says samadhaya manoridhi, with his mind and consciousness coming from his heart, he's offering prayers. And what does he do? Jajapa. Japa means to offer prayer, to chant. He was chanting what? Paramam. Param means to the supreme. And then he says japyam. Japyam means given by the previous acharyas, or indicated by the previous acharyas. And it says Prag Janma. Prag Janma means previous birth. So who was Gajendra in the previous birth? He was King Indradyumna. So yes, he had offered a prayer in the past life, and he is remembering that prayer, and Anushikshitam, he is by the grace of Lord, he's just repeating that prayer again here. And Prabhupada writes in the purport very nicely that we must also, remember prayers. We should recite prayers. And what is the advantage of that? Especially says we must recite Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Hare Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Rama Rama Hare Hare. So Prabhupada writes that we should recite these prayers, and what will happen is when we are in danger, then we'll remember these prayers like Gajendra. And if we cannot recite these prayers, at least we'll remember the Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So this is what every devotee should practice, to recite prayers and communicate with the Lord. Prabhupada says here that Whether one recite Uttam Shlokas, Uttam Shloka means the choicest of the verses, or he recites prayers from the scriptures, or chants, japa, or prays to the Lord from his personal thoughts and feelings. But the condition is that it should be done wholeheartedly and not mechanically. Wholeheartedly and not mechanically. So this is when we hear time and time and time again, when we do our japa, most times our japa is mechanical. And as we say, what is important? Chanting or finishing the rounds? But what do we think is more important? So finishing the rounds means you're actually struggling to chant. But when we give importance to chanting, when we're chanting with our hearts, then the time flies, you just don't even know. Otherwise, one moment is like 12 years or more. So then second C, we come after communication, we pray to the Lord. Second C is consultation. So we communicate nicely, that's a skill we learn, and the second one is consultation. I always quote this very famous verse from His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He said, I do not trust any one person's mind, including my own. As we know, Tamal Krishna Maharaj was an amazing, dynamic, he was a super leader. Anything Prabhupada wanted, very difficult to do, Tamal Krishna is the person to go to. Whether it's in the West or in India, he will trust Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And imagine Tamal Krishna Maharaj saying this, I do not trust any one person's mind, including my own. Just think about that. So what does that mean? That means he was consulting his God brothers, his God sisters. Of course, when Prabhupada was there, it was easy that, all you do is just consult Prabhupada. So he will consult, on difficult things. Sometimes very simple things also. And we see from the scriptures also. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is the Supreme Lord himself. But in his Leela, he is consulting Haridas Thakur. He tells Haridas Thakur, now, all these Malechas and Yavanas will come, how will they be delivered? And Haridas Thakur says, these Malechas and Yavanas, what do they chant? Haram, 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 haram. And the Haridas Thakur very nicely says that haram, even though it's like a swear word, it's a curse, it's not a very good word, but just because it has the word Ram, it has the potency on that person, on the Yavana. So imagine how fortunate we are to be under the shelter of this wonderful holy name. And then Haridas Thakur actually continues from there. He says, but what do the pure devotees do? They chant, Hey Ram, Haram. Actually in the Charitamrita it is mentioned Haram only, Haram, Haram, Haram. But in that Ha, he says that Ha is like, O Lord Ramachandra, O Lord Ramachandra. So the devotee is chanting the name of O Lord Ramachandra. So here we understand that Lord knows this, but is still consulting Haridas Thakur in his Leela, so we can also understand that whatever position we are in, we should, for major things in life, we should consult someone else. Many times devotees take very long-lasting decisions and they don't consult. And then they realize that, oh, I've got into something. Like a simple thing I'll give you, please, this is no any specific reference to anyone. But, devotees are, nicely settled in their life, they've got a nice job and all that. And then suddenly you hear, next thing is that, they've taken up a 3-year course. Now full-time work, maybe full-time family, and then they've taken up a 3-year course. Imagine what's going to happen in the spiritual life in those 3 years. And these 3 years are very prime years in someone's life. You're just getting into the devotional service, and that really severely affects your spiritual life. Or you start some job where it's not required. Please, I'm not against all these things, but what I'm saying is that It's better if he has devotees consult someone and they can speak to us from different angles. Even Krishna, in his past times, he has consulted Uddhava. When Jarasandha was attacking, Krishna consulted Uddhava. When Krishna had to do his daily yagyas and all that in Dwarka, he will consult Uddhava. And in our few classes back, when we said learning by extension, so Krishna is teaching Uddhava, and then Maitreya Muni is there, and Maitreya is also hearing. So consultation is very, very important in our lives. So the second C is consultation. And we see also how was Prabhupada, doing things. Prabhupada, he will, call his disciples, and then what will he say? Okay, I got this proposal, or I'm thinking about this. What do you think? He'll consult the disciples. And does anyone know what will happen? So each disciple, according to their realizations, they will give their opinions, right? And which one would Prabhupada choose? Which one would Prabhupada choose? The most practical one? The most easy one? The most difficult one? He would actually choose the biggest one. So if someone says, like as we know in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Prabhupada said, 17 volumes in how much time? 2 months, right? You would say, what? 2 months? It will take years for us to publish these books. And Prabhupada said, no, 2 months. And within 2 months, Chaitanya Charitamrita was out. Just imagine that. 17 volumes, and how many years we take to read it? Maybe in some houses even the plastic won't have been taken out. So Chaitanya Prabhupada will consult the disciples, and then he will choose what is the biggest possible option, biggest possible scenario, and he'll say, let's do it. And what was the famous saying, what Prabhupada used to say? If you want to, because in his words, chase or shoot an animal, what will you choose? There's a book in that name by Shyama Prabhu. Chasing rhino. Chasing rhino with the Swami, right? So the rhino is the biggest. So if you want to chase an animal, chase the biggest. Because if you want to shoot a star, shoot the sun, and you'll end up, or moon, and you'll end up somewhere in the stars. So when we aim for something big, at least we'll end up somewhere there. So consultation is required, yes, but also we should aim for something big when we're together. Any questions or comments so far? Any reflections? No?
Oh.
Yes, Prabhu.
Talking about prayers, there's no more important prayer for me than the Mahamantra.
Yes.
But I use it as a prayer.
Yes.
So this is aiming something great. Is there any greater than?
No.
Please let me engage in this.
Actually, Prabhupada says in that canto, he says, among the prayers, one must chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, and of course that's the highest position. And as we know, that by chanting Hare Krishna in this day and age, we can get the highest goal. Many times, recently one devotee, we are like, speaking to one of their friends in the US. So she's asking, if Vishnu is there, why not Hare Vishnu, Hare Vishnu? Why Krishna's and Ram's name is there? Why not Vishnu's name? But Prabhupada actually wanted us to achieve the highest by the most simplest means of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And what is that? What did Prabhupada want us to achieve? The Braj Bhakti in Vrindavan Dham, which is very highest, the topmost one, the most confidential one. We can achieve Vaikuntha, we can achieve Ayodhya, we can achieve any of the lokas. But Prabhupada wanted us to go for the highest, the worship of divine couple, the Braj Bhakti in Sri Vrindavan Dham, which is very, very rare, but has been made very easy by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in this day and age by chanting the holy name. It's as simple as that. So the second C is consultation. And again, when we consult, why don't we consult? Does anyone know why don't we consult? If you're taking a decision and it's obvious that it's a big decision going to have a far-reaching implication, why don't we consult? Ego and pride. Yes.
I know better.
I know better. Yeah. But actually, if you understand, we have chambers of commerce. We have associated industries. We have, all the forums are there. Why are they for? If in material life they can have all these things, associations and forums, then why can't we have in spiritual life? And that's why Prabhupada established International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that we live in a society where we can consult each other. Dadati pratigrinati guhyam akhyati prichati. Right? Simple. It's very simple. But many times devotees, one time I remember many years ago, one devotee called me and says, Prabhu, this and this devotee is going through some difficulties. Can we go and meet them? So when we went and met them, we spoke and all that. And after that, this devotee is telling me, Prabhu, can I request one thing? Can you please not, say this to anyone else? Can you please keep this confidential? I said, yes, Prabhu, whatever you wish, I will do that, no problem. But can I say something? Yes. He says, what would you like? Which option would you like? That I keep it confidential and no one knows, or I tell the devotees and everyone prays for you? So which one do you think is better?
Second.
Of course, we are not going to affect the dignity of devotees, and we are not going to act in such a way that people make fun of one another. No. But that's why we've established a center that we are coming together as a family, respect each other, understand each other's limitations and capacities, and then serve accordingly. That's the whole idea. We consult on small things in life, very, very small things in life. And that's why consultation is very important. And when we consult with each other, the progress happens seamlessly. It's very, very smooth. And the last C is care. Care. And I always mention this. These three C's, communication, consultation and care, are such a vital part of our lives, not only spiritual life, but even normal life. Of course, we are not supposed to have any outside life. But generally, if you say, okay, even at your work, you communicate properly, you consult with people properly, no mistakes will happen. But if you just do something without consulting, more chance of making mistakes. And then when we communicate and consult with each other, people understand that yes, this person actually trusts me. This person has confidence in me. And then, caring becomes very easy. If we say something to someone else, no one takes it the other way around. So we all take it in the right spirit. So care is there. And I read something to you, which is for all of us. We might think I'm not a leader, but this applies to all of us because by coming to ISKCON, we all become leaders of the society. So the caring leader has to be a servant leader. Has to be a servant leader. The first job for us is to serve. A true well-wishing friend. A leader has to be a true well-wishing friend. We don't trust anyone, we don't judge anyone. We don't judge anyone and we don't break the trust of anyone. We should have compassion and a selfless interest in the welfare of the devotees serving with us. So we should have compassion and selfless interest in the welfare of the devotees. And no one else exemplified this more than Srila Prabhupada. We can hear so many stories where Prabhupada used to be so caring, and we'll go through a couple of them depending on the time. We discussed the importance of good listening and communication skills, of exemplary behavior, and the ability to give balanced advice according to time, place and circumstance. One time, one devotee came to Prabhupada and says, I cannot stay with my spouse and I want to be separated. And Prabhupada said nothing to him. No, we cannot be separated. And then the devotee heard and then went away. And after some time, the devotee came back again. On the next visit to Prabhupada, devotee said nothing to Prabhupada said nothing to him. And the same devotee came on the third time. Prabhupada said, okay, just do what you want to do. And then the devotees asked Prabhupada, why did you do that? So Prabhupada said that if I don't agree to what they're saying, they will do anyway. So instead of they committing the offense of Guru Ravakya, of disobeying the spiritual master, instead of that, I told them just to do whatever they want. So that's why we have to give the right advice according to the time, place and circumstance. We also want to make sure that the importance of leaders taking the time to care for themselves is there. So they are strong and stable in their service. We can break up the caring of the caring section into the caring of the deities and caring of the devotees. And when we take care of this, automatically everything else is taken care of. So when we take care of the deities, there are many examples. One time in Mumbai, Shri Radha Rasbihari Vede, there was a small Archavigraha, and there's no temple, they were just in a pandal. It's like almost open pandal. Anyone can walk in any time. And there are constant devotees guarding 24/7, like that. And one time the devotees were on guard, they were tired and they just dozed off. And these small deities were there, and the crown and the flute was stolen. All the thieves have to do is just move the curtain, come inside, walk over a couple of sleeping devotees and just steal those things away. And devotees were actually taking very good care. They were all guarding all the time. Just that minute, they were a bit lax, and this happened. And Prabhupada was not very happy. And he wrote a very strong letter to Giriraj Maharaj, because Giriraj Maharaj was, in charge then. He wrote a very strong letter to Giriraj Maharaj, saying that how can you be so careless? And Giriraj Maharaj, instead of defending himself, he actually agreed with Prabhupada that, yeah, Prabhupada, I am very ashamed of my carelessness. And I will make sure that this doesn't happen again. So deities were very well taken care of, in Prabhupada's times and in all the times. And Prabhupada said that if you take care of the deities nicely, everything will go nice in your yatra. At different instances, Prabhupada said different things. One time he said, if the deities are taken care of nicely, and the Tulsi Maharani is taken care of nicely, then everything will flourish. One time he said, if the deities are taken care of nicely, and the books are going out nicely, everything will be nice. So this way, Prabhupada used to show that how the deities have to be taken care of. Prabhupada also used to be very caring about the devotees. The famous story of Yamuna Mataji. Yamuna Mataji actually was sick, very sick, and she was struggling quite a bit. And in those days, now just imagine this, we all have our own nice homes, right? Very nice homes here. In those days, when Jew temple was being built, even Prabhupada didn't have a fixed place to stay. So every time Prabhupada visits there, and Prabhupada one time when the land deal was going on, and when the vendor, Mr. Nair, he was dilly-dallying, he wanted to cheat the devotees, he wanted to take money. Prabhupada was in Mumbai for 3 months at a stretch, continuously. In 3 months, they couldn't organize a place, so he had to move from place to place. So this time they were in this apartment in South Bombay, a place called Akash Ganga, and there's no space. There's hardly any space because so many devotees were staying there. And Yamuna Mataji, guess where she was sleeping? Okay?
Outside gallery or
No, in the closet. We have storeroom, in the cupboard, in the closet. So just the bottom shelf where there's some space. So she was actually sleeping there. And then one time Prabhupada found out that this is what happening, so Prabhupada opened the door, and then, she said, Jamuna, how are you? Jamuna, they said, Prabhupada, I am a little sick. And then Prabhupada touched her very affectionately, and he asked for the symptoms. And he said, you have got jaundice. In those days, jaundice for Westerners was very common. So she had jaundice. And then immediately Prabhupada said, arrange a bed for her, a special hospital bed in the next room where Prabhupada was staying. So next room they arranged a bed, and Prabhupada made special food for her. And in Ayurveda they say there's a thing called peta. Now peta is not ordinary peta what we think of, just a sugar. So it was peta, means it is like a raw pumpkin and then covered with the molasses. It's like a very horrible looking thing. It's like, and Jamuna Mataji says that, when I took the first bite, it was like poison, because of course she had jaundice. And Prabhupada said this is the only cure for jaundice. So it's very bitter, extremely bitter. And then she kept on eating that even though she didn't like. And Prabhupada made sure that she's being taken care of very nicely. So this way Prabhupada used to take care of the devotees very, very nicely. One time, in those days, most of the times, the devotees were staying in the temple. So they had no job. And they were all serving the mission. And Amrish Prabhu, Alfred Ford, so he was in Mumbai, and he was serving, and then he had to leave, and before leaving he said, okay, I will meet Prabhupada. And then he had a long meeting with Prabhupada, and then in those days, like everyone was serving the mission, and Prabhupada told him that, Amrish, you should actually go and work. Amrish, he got a surprise. Says, so Prabhupada, should I work at a Ford Motor Company? Because that's his great grandfather's company, right? So Prabhupada said, yeah, or no, you can do any work. But what we want to show to the people is that a devotee, while serving the mission, can also work. So this is very relevant to our case. That while we are working, we are serving the mission here. But what comes next is very important. So then Amrish Prabhu said, but Prabhupada, if I work, how will I get the association? Because in those days, association means you stay in the temple. You attend Mangalarti. Mangalarti is of course very, very important. You go out during Sankirtan, you do Harinam book distribution and evening program. But then if you're working, you can't do all those things. Prabhupada told him that when you're working, you come for the morning and evening program, but when you're working, you always stay connected with Krishna. That way, you will be associating with Krishna all the time. So Prabhupada didn't give him anything which was not practical. But he was caring for him both materially and spiritually, that yes, spiritually also you must get the association. And he gave him the advice on how by working outside also we can be associated with Krishna, so that you don't lose association, in your spiritual life. And the last story is 7 o'clock. One time you heard of little Saraswati, Parvati and Shyamasundar Prabhu's daughter. So Saraswati was very little, and the devotees were making a big pot of chutney. So somehow Saraswati fell into the pot of chutney. And guess what? The devotees were worried about the chutney, but Prabhupada was worried about Saraswati. So he was not worried. The devotee said, Prabhupada, this happened. What do we do with the chutney? I said, save Saraswati first, then worry about the chutney. So this is how we can see that Prabhupada was very, very caring, in all the instances. And we see so many examples where Prabhupada was caring for, not only his disciples, but basically for every conditioned soul. One last pastime, this is one of my favorite ones. In Melbourne, Chittahari Prabhu was dropping Prabhupada back to the airport. They were passing through Melbourne downtown. And Chittahari Prabhu recounts this story. He says, I'm driving, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada, and I'm feeling very fortunate that I'm so fortunate that I'm able to drive Srila Prabhupada, the Jagat Guru, in the car to the airport, and I'm, very happy. And then he somehow looked at Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had a tear in his eye. So, on one hand, you're very happy, and then you see your spiritual master, with a tear in his eyes. Chaitanya Prabhu asked Prabhupada, is everything okay? He says, what will we do with all these conditioned souls? How can we save them? Mahaprabhu came here for that. My Guru Maharaj did so much sacrifice. So Prabhupada was actually caring for all the conditioned souls. And as we saw, that even as devotees, we can become impersonal towards these conditioned souls if we don't go out and preach this message of Mahaprabhu to one and all. So now let's spend a couple of minutes in extending these 3 C's. So any more C's when we are devotees? Who wants to add some C's to that? We can also have the flip side. If we don't do this, then what happens? So C aloud for that also. So come on, which side quickly? What happens? Something with C.
Concentration.
Okay. Concentration, very good.
Compassion.
So when you are a devotee, concentration both in spiritual and material life happens, yes?
Compassion.
Compassion, very good. So you automatically become compassionate because you're thinking of all the conditioned souls. Wonderful. Come on, this side. Consistency, wonderful. Okay, consistency, you become consistent. So I always tell someone that, you come here for 6-7 weeks, this becomes your family, and then it becomes very easy to share this knowledge. Very good, thank you, Mataji. Someone said here? Considerate, very good, wonderful. 4 is to 1, come on. Considerate, sorry? Curious, okay, how would that be an advantage? Yes, Einstein said, you never stop questioning. And all the conversations in our scriptures are questions and answers. So, if you're not curious, you won't know. Yeah, very nice. So when we become devotees, we ask questions. We are curious. Okay? Sorry? Courteous. Wonderful. We become courteous. Even though externally sometimes, but we become very courteous. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you.
Completely surrender.
Complete surrender. Okay, I'll allow you that, man. Because you're a good singer. Okay. Complete surrender. Okay, anyone from the backside here? Any C's? Chaitanya, yes, the love giver, the giver of the highest love. Chaitanya, yes. Anyone else? Contemplation, very good. Who said that? Contemplation, very nice. Yes, thank you. Contemplation, very important, required. If we don't contemplate, we don't progress in bhakti. Lokanath Goswami uses a very nice word called Singhavalokan. Singhavalokan means a lion. Avalokans means every few steps he looks forward and he looks backward. He looks forward and he looks backward. We should do the same thing in our spiritual lives. We should look back to see what mistakes we made, so if we don't repeat our mistakes, and we should see what benchmark I've got, what exciting stuff I've got. As they say, for us the excitement is, as Virat Prabhu quoted some time back, that the courage is the sense of purpose is higher than the sense of fear, right? So purpose, and they say the world's best alarm clock is purpose. If you have purpose in your life, you can channel, C for channel all your energies, and in the morning you can get out of bed when you have a purpose in life. If you don't have a purpose in life, then you can be very lethargic. But if you have a purpose in life, which is our Krishna consciousness and sharing this wonderful Krishna consciousness gift to others, that's our choice. C for choice. Yes. Courage, yes, you said that. Okay. Cooperation, wonderful. Okay. Cooperation is required, yes. Cooperation is required because, there's a lot of work to do, a lot of souls to be saved. And we need to cooperate with each other, very important. And this cooperation will happen only if we communicate properly, only if we consult, and we care for each other. If these things don't happen, then cooperation will be just in name, it won't be in spirit. Yeah, thank you very much. This is wonderful. Okay, one last one. Courage, you already mentioned that. Courage, yes.
Change yourself.
Change, yes, very good. Yeah, you change yourself. Change yourself and you become Krishna conscious, yeah. As they say, like, Prabhu, you don't have to do anything. Just add Krishna to your life, nothing happens, And after 3 years, you see Kishore Bhain Dhoti and Kurta and Tila. Hey, how this change happened, man? Even he doesn't know. Thank you. Srila Prabhupada ki, Bhagavati Das ki,
His Grace Sakhi Prabhu ki.
Bhakta Vrinda ki. So we'll rise for the Aarti. And you can pray from your hearts. Chant as loudly as you can and dance. And today,